Lamar Jackson getting her done, and then some. Lamar throwing not one but two touchdowns. He also ran into the end zone for the first score of the game for the Ravens. Derrick Henry did not find pay dirt, but did control the game on the ground. 140 yards rushing for Derrick Henry, who was washed up in Tennessee and has had a rebirth in Baltimore. The Ravens, Coach John Harbaugh, now 3-0 against his brother, Jim Harbaugh, as the Ravens beat the Chargers 30-23 in a game that was not that close. It was the first matchup, I know you're keeping track at home, the first matchup since the Harbaughs battled it out back in Super Bowl 47, way back in February of 2013 when the lights went out in New Orleans. And that is when John Harbaugh's Ravens beat the 49ers, coached by Jim Harbaugh back in the day. And so Jim Harbaugh returning to the NFL this year. We know he'd spent a long time at Michigan, 9 seasons in Ann Arbor, capped off by a championship, the national title, and they hung out and hugged each other. It was all over TV there before the game. Then the game was played. But let's focus in on the game itself. What do you say? And so we're week 12 now done, and we immediately pivot, as this is our Tuesday show. It's Monday into Tuesday, and before you know it, we're back at it on Thursday for Week 13. But let's focus in on what it all means, because it's all about the meaning of life through sport. So as we discussed, the question, what does this outcome from Monday night say to you about Jim Harbaugh's Chargers, the better story in the losing locker room? So what does it say about Jim Harbaugh's Chargers? So I've got Play-Doh, the Cutlery Shop, and Early Bird. And we will combine all of these things together, and we will give you liberty, is what we're going to give you. So, this was a clear measuring stick game. It was. And I will be the first to admit that I overvalued the Chargers. I thought they were legit. They're frauds. Their defense is a fraud defense, and they were on display. They had an opportunity in a measuring stick situation. How can your defense, supposedly a top 10 defense in the NFL, go against the top offense going right now with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens? And the results, puke in your mouth bad, cover your eyes bad. The Chargers, to be kind, they have a lot of ground to make up, we could also point out the entire Charger defense took a ride collectively on the vomit comet in this game, how not to tackle. There were business decisions being made on where to tackle and where not to tackle and all that. But the defense, we had heard so much about the Charger defense, and the numbers were pretty good, right? Pretty good defensive numbers for Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers defense there. That was the pride and joy, and they were absolutely pantsed by the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore started slow. They started slow, and the Bolts made some plays early in the game, but as the game continued on and on, Lamar Jackson, he had that eureka moment where he figured some things out, and floodgates were open. Off to the races. The flag is up. And he treated the Charger defense like Play-Doh. The Chargers were Play-Doh in the hands of Lamar Jackson there. They were manhandled defensively by the Baltimore offense. Baltimore scored on 5 straight possessions. Touchdown, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, touchdown. And now, I didn't play in the NFL, but I would think that if I just do the overnight show, but if you're a really good defense, you don't allow 5 consecutive drives to result in points, and 4 of those touchdown drives, which is what the Chargers did in this game. The Chargers allowed 212 yards on the ground. The first time a Jim Harbaugh coached NFL team had allowed over 200 yards. They had no clue. No basic tackling. Like, what was that? And it shows you the Chargers' defensive statistics were built up against inferior quarterbacks, and they gave up a fair amount of yardage, a fair amount of points to the Bengals last week and Joe Burrow, and now they come back and have their own issues here in this game against another better quarterback, top quarterback in Lamar Jackson. Now, page 2. Did the Ravens did the Ravens find a defense, or was this game more about Justin Herbert and his foibles, the Charger quarterback having a tough day at the office? So the arrow on this one is pointing the direction of the foibles of Justin Herbert, is pointing that way, because the Ravens defense, by this point, you are set in your ways, right? You're not going to change that much. You built up a body of work here. The Ravens defense ranked dead last in the entire business of football in terms of their pass defense entering Monday Night Football. They were the worst of the worst. And yet, that same Raven defense, despite those horrible numbers, Justin Herbert finished with 15 incompletions, 21 completions, 218 yards, no touchdowns, was sacked 4 times, and looked generally lost through stretches of the game. And Jim Harbaugh, and a fatal flaw for the Chargers here, and this is going to be a problem that they're going to have for a while. They have a good kicker, and it's Dicker the kicker. Too dependent on Dicker the kicker here. It is a trip to the cutlery shop, and you've purchased the double-edged sword. If you're Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, it cuts both ways because you have a top-notch kicker. And as a result, you are more prone to settle for field goals rather than go for it. And against better opponents, you're going to need more touchdowns, but you have a great kicker. And as a result, the Chargers went a mind-boggling 54 minutes between touchdowns in this game. They scored early in the game and didn't score until late in the game. And Justin Herbert mentioned this was on him more than the Ravens defense. There were plays to be made. And Justin Herbert, there was one in particular in the first half, late in the first half there, where Herbert was on a different page of the playbook than one of his key receivers there, and he missed a wide-open Joshua Palmer for what would have been and could have been and should have been a touchdown right over the middle there. You go high, and I'll throw low, or vice versa. And so instead, the Chargers have, for this point in the book, we're reading the book here, we're writing the book, and at this point in the book, the Chargers are second-class citizens among the AFC contenders. They're not in the upper class. They don't have a defense that's legit. They were exposed by Lamar and the Ravens, and the Chargers are squarely in that middleweight category in the AFC, that second line where you've got Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore, at least going into the playoff picture, and then after that, you've got a hodgepodge of teams that are there. Now, the last word here. What do you make of the stars of the show not being in attendance? I know there were a lot of TV people. I was at SoFi Stadium and just chit-chatting. People disappointed they couldn't get that reaction shot from Jackie and Jack Harbaugh, the patriarch and matriarch of the Harbaugh family there, as they were not in attendance. So what do you make of Jackie and Jack Harbaugh, their decision to not attend the John and Jim Palooza between the Ravens and the Chargers in L.A.? They were not there. They stayed back in the Sunshine State. So this was, to me, a dead giveaway. It was a dead giveaway. Now, it was a dead giveaway. My theory on this is they're just simply burned out. They're simply burned out. Have seen this before, right? They've seen this act before. They saw it on the grandest stage of them all in the Super Bowl. Okay, so it's not big enough. A random regular season trip to California on a Monday night, Thanksgiving week, we're good. Instead, we are told that the Harbaugh parents decided to spend the night with their daughter and their son-in-law, Tom Crean. Remember him? He's still getting paid by a bunch of college basketball programs where he sucked at. And their 2 grandkids. They're in Florida. And who could possibly question that? Celebrating their wedding anniversary. They'd just rather hang out, have that early bird special, enjoy a nice meal, and call it a night. But it just shows you, again, it's a simple philosophy I have in life, and most people would agree with this, I think. I don't know about you. If it's important enough, you'll find a way. If something's important enough, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. And I get it. It wasn't important enough. It was a regular season game. It was a playoff game. They probably would have been there. But it's a testimonial to how successful John and Jim Harbaugh have been that their parents are like, we'll watch it on TV. Yeah, we got to buy stuffing, and we got to find the perfect pumpkin pie and cranberries and get ready for Thursday. So we can't be bothered to be flying out to L.A. and hang out. I mean, come on, what a pain in the butt. Leave us alone. Leave us alone.